Okay, I just got an Atari 2600 Junior, and I just wanted to share some tips and tricks with this console. The plastic on these is super brittle, and there's only just the 5 screws on the back holding it together, but you can actually damage the post on the inside that the screw goes into just by unscrewing it. If you want to give it a little bit of a twist to tighten it and then loosen it, it works every time. You didn't even hear the virgin crack on that one. The virgin crack is when the screw has never been taken out of the taken out of the console ever. If you don't hear the virgin crack, it's possible they've been out before. I am actually not hearing. There it was. Once your five screws are out, you still have 3 tabs in this grill here to separate the 2 halves. A flat screwdriver or anything flat, just to get in there and just twist it a little bit to get it off there. These are really easy to break, actually. So, you know, take your time, be easy with it. And the last one came out itself, cool. And then you'll have a ribbon cable right here to connect the select and reset buttons to the motherboard, and it just pulls right out. Okay, I'm going to clean the plastic halves. The bottom piece looks really clean except for the inside, just needs a dusting, so I'll probably just use air to blow out the dust, because the bottom label with the serial number on it is just paper, and any kind of moisture will ruin it. The top half, all these little grooves on the buttons and everything, and back here in the grills and on the side pieces and everything, I do want to get those with soap and water and maybe a toothbrush. But what I'll do is I'll pop them out of the shell and probably pull the ribbon cable so that I can access everything better. I don't know if you can see that, but to get the slider switches out, there's just 2 tabs on each side. Just hit them with your thumbs, and out they pop. The select and reset buttons, again 2 tabs, but they're on top and bottom, and they're a little harder. I don't know if I can get those with my thumb. Okay. Okay, the sliders are off, and now the ribbon cable. There's a little keeper post right there that has to come off of before you can slide it right out. These things are super fragile. They're basically held together with double-sided tape on the inside. And this one looks really clean. I have had to take these apart to clean the contacts, because you can't actually clean the contacts from the outside. You have to separate the layers to get to the contacts. And then obviously once you do that, the tape is shot. and you'll need to retape it or glue it or something. I think I actually used super glue last time I put it back together, and it barely worked. I think some kind of adhesive, gel adhesive, would have been a better idea. But now I can get down into the crevices here and give it a good cleaning. All this is painted metal, so I have no worries about getting it wet. Give it a good wash. Okay, I'm also going to clean the motherboard really well. So the first thing you want to do is remove all the RF shielding. On the Junior, it's really simple. There's just these tabs that stick through. They're twisted. Just take your needle nose and untwist them. Okay, all the ones on the bottom are untwisted. Really is usually not this difficult. So 3 more under the back cover to untwist to get the top shiny one off. And then the top dull one has its own 3 tabs for it to come off also. Now I will, for safety reasons, I turn the power on and I take a 1 ohm resistor, and I'll actually short between the positive leg and ground of the capacitor to discharge it. This isn't necessary, but for what I'm doing, my LCR meter, I'm not sure, does automatic discharging. But what I want to do is check to make sure that that capacitor is still okay for use. Let's see if I can put those on the leads here. You can see that, but it's showing 2235 microfarad, and it's a 2200 microfarad cap. I don't know if you can see that or not in there, but so the power cap is good to go. Now, I pretty much do all circuit boards the same way. I will spray them down completely with degreaser, including inside the cart connector, front and back. Let it sit for a while. I've got a little felt board that I put in there and clean the contacts better. And then I'll actually rinse it with water, with hot water, and then try to get as much of the water off of the board as possible. And then I'll go back and spray the whole thing back down with rubbing alcohol, mostly to displace the water, to get rid of the water, and it will wash off any remaining dirt and leave a dry surface. I'll also try to get as much of the alcohol off the board as I can, and then I'll actually stick it under some kind of fan or maybe a space heater to make sure it's completely dry. I've had problems mostly with the Nintendo top loader. Water will get caught underneath the RF modulator and cause problems. And I quickly learned to put it under the heat source to get rid of any of that water. Okay, so at the kitchen sink, this is the degreaser I use. It's just Formula 409, you can get it anywhere. And I just spray the mother down, just douse it with it. I let it sit for a while. This one's actually been sitting for a while. And then to get into
cart connector. This is the actual the felt board that I use. What it actually came out of was a Nintendo cartridge cleaner, just like this. This one has a different style. I already cut the tabs off the sides just so I could use it in here. This one has kind of like a silk fabric covering over a piece of plastic, and this is really excellent for using in top loaders and whatnot. You can soak this down with the 409 and just in and out a bunch of times, and it works great. This one actually, the felt board, once you get it wet with anything, it tends to crush on the corners and doesn't work as well as often, or it doesn't have as much longevity. I'll put it that way. So all I'm doing is sticking that felt down in there and just running it in and out on all the contacts. And get them nice and clean. And then I'll just rinse the whole board off with hot water. Okay, and now I'll just get as much of that water off as I can. And then we'll take it outside for the rubbing alcohol treatment. Okay, so the Atari 2600 Junior board is still wet with water. We do not want that, so I'm going to spray it down with rubbing alcohol. The highest percentage I could find was 91%. That'll be just fine. Put it to a big spray bottle I got at Walmart, and we'll just soak it down. Obviously I'm doing this outside because rubbing alcohol stinks. And it's not something I want to put down the drain. We'll just put that under a space heater and dry it off. Okay, so it's still a little bit wet with rubbing alcohol, so I'm just going to put it under a space heater. Actually got it rigged pointed downwards onto the motherboard. And I might only leave it there 5-10 minutes, just enough to get rid of the alcohol. Okay, now we're all washed up, looking good. Put the slider switches back in. So just push them down, click them in. Put our flex circuit back in. Make sure your alignment post is there. And we can just should be able to just push these back on too. Try not to be careful not to break anything here, since it's not my console. It sounded harsh, but it came in just fine. Okay.
on the 2600 Junior, what I end up doing is cutting out the original RCA jack, installing this AV headphone style jack right into that hole. I get these through Mauser. They're not cheap, but they're worth it. It's one of the few true 3-pole headphone style jacks that I could find. Everything else was stereo only. The cord itself, the cord that jack uses has a headphone style plug on one end and the red, white, and yellow plugs on the other end. And this one is nice, it's 6 feet long. I get this one off of eBay. Okay, the big problem with the 2600 Junior is the TIA chip is not socketed. So you're going to end up soldering all the leads from the board input to the legs of the TIA. Now, I mean, the newer, like the Cybertech mod, you just pull the chip, insert this board, and then put the TI back on top of it, and then all you have to worry about is your output leads. Your S-video, composite, ground, audio right and left. But in this case, we're actually going to have some ribbon cable between the TIA and the mod board itself. I've done this a few times, so I kind of have a good idea of what I'm going to do. The mod board is probably going to sit right in that little pocket where there's not much going on. I'll leave that shield off permanently, and then I'll just have some double-sided foam tape to stick the mod board down right in this area, and that way I'll only have maybe 2 inches worth of leads going from our headphone connector to the outputs of the mod board. But I'm probably going to need somewhere in the range of maybe 4 to 6 inches worth of ribbon cable to come from the inputs of the mod board to go over to the TIA chip. Okay, so far I've got all my ribbon cable attached to the mod board. Power and ground are running off over here to a couple resistors that were part of the RF modulation, and the ribbon actually goes to the bottom side of the TIA chip, connect to 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 12 and 13 on the far end. Now I actually have to go through and either cut traces or lift resistors, because 6, 9, 12, and 13 cannot be connected. Usually you lift that pin or something from the top to connect to, but it's a lot easier just to cut a couple resistors or a couple traces. Okay, for pin 6, we're going to cut resistor 31 right here. And just twist it out of the way. For pin 9, we need to cut resistor 29, which is that one, and capacitor 50 and resistor 54. Okay, capacitor 50 and resistor 54 are these last two. Just bend them down out of the way so they don't touch the shield. Okay, pin 12 and 13 are connected by jumper W2, which is to the left of the TIA. Okay, on pin 12, you also need to make sure resistor 36 and capacitor 55 are not there. And I think mostly on the 2600 Junior, they were never put in there. This is resistor 36. This is capacitor 55. They weren't even installed. Pin 13 need resistor 34 and capacitor 49. Okay, resistor 34, this one, for pin 13, capacitor 49 is way over here. Okay, let's test fit. Go ahead and put the shielding back on. I'm just simply going to have the wires come up over the shielding. No big deal. So that was 6 inches of ribbon cable. Worked out perfect. And like I said, I'll just put some double-sided foam tape down in here. Keep this glued down. And then all I have to end up doing is having a couple inches worth of wires between the mod board outputs and the headphone style jack. Okay, the bottom shield, I'm actually going to cut out just maybe an inch or so right there so that the ribbon cable feeds through and I can leave the shields on. Okay, there you go. All I did was make a couple slices right there and bend the metal back. The ribbon cable comes through over the front shield. Works fine. Okay, now what I'm going to do is actually try to smash this little RCA jack and try to leave the actual mounting bracket on it.